My name's Johanna and I live in Florida. Working with you has been an amazing ride because it truly made me come out of my shell and turn me into the person that I've always wanted to um, become.
Let's go ahead and really just start taking people on the journey that we have been
Yeah.
on over the past
Yeah.
6 months. So can you describe where you were in your life before we started working together? What were the challenges that you were experiencing, the obstacles? Like what specific goals did you have for yourself that made you seek out the support with me?
I just never really had a structure. I always failed. I had a cycle where I always, I was rock bottom. And so I didn't know what to do, where to start until I stumbled onto your account and I read more about it and I read more testimonies and I said, what can I lose? There's nothing I can lose. And so it made me just say, I'm gonna do it. And I want to change my life. I want to break the cycle that I was in. And that's what prompted me to working with you.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about what cycle you were in because you said you wanted to break out of the cycle.
Mhm.
Describe a little bit about what specifically you were struggling with.
I was struggling with my time management and sticking to my studies and sticking to my goal. I always do good, and then and then there's just a time where I hit that month or um, that I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing this anymore. What's the point? And then we drop from classes, and then I'm like, what is life? And then get inspired again. And then there was no structure. There was literally everything was just I was just wandering.
How was that experience affecting you and affecting your life? The fact that you got some momentum and then at some point in there you would drop off and then that would make you start thinking what's the point of this? And then you withdraw from the very goals and dreams it is that you had for yourself. What was that doing to maybe your self-concept or your identity or the way that you were showing up in other areas of your life?
I thought I wasn't a good student. I thought I was dumb. I thought a lot of bad things about myself and it ruined me. And it was all in my head and it just ruined me as a person. But it changed once I worked with you.
I want to go back to when we initially started working together. So I want you to I know this is a long time ago, and I know because of all the
Yeah.
work done together, you're a completely different person, but really take yourself back to that first
Mhm.
month of us working together. Can you share the changes that you started to notice within yourself in those immediate few weeks?
Yeah, I think it was we worked with like with our mindset and the tapping and wanting to change of who I was to who I want to become, and then having that structure of weekly schedule. That's when I started noticing, I was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't that bad at all. But I was very, I was depressed. I didn't know if it was gonna if I was even gonna make it, or if I was even gonna ghost you because, oh my gosh, I messed up, but no, even sticking to the schedule that I made, 60%, 50% and 70% to 80%, it changed. It really did.
Yeah. And so when you initially came to work with me, the main thing that you kept saying was I just want to learn how to be consistent. I just want to be able to do what it is that I say that I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
I had challenged Johanna to create a schedule every single week on either Sunday or Monday of
Mhm.
what she was planning to do that week. And I told her, I'm I don't need you to stick to it 100%. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm literally just asking you to create this schedule every single week. And the reason why I had tasked you with that, and you learn this over time, is because it brought up all your shit. You
Mhm.
wouldn't stick to it, right? You would have all these excuses. And everything that came up as you attempted to try to stick to the schedule is everything that we work through every single week. So I'd love if you'd be able to talk to like some of the different practices and tools that I would take you through and what your experience was of them.
Oh my gosh, there's so much that you have, like the tools that you have that have helped me and I have brought with me to school. Again, like with the tapping, and it's all like just talking it out with myself, and um my anxiety kind of lessened the more I practice with everything. Like I just go to the website, and whatever I'm feeling, it's there's always something for what I feel in the program.
Yeah,
And
what Johanna is talking about is I do these like emotional freedom technique tapping
yeah,
audios, and emotional freedom technique is one of the tools that I use with students to help them to feel less anxious, to not be stressed, to help deal with their overwhelm. And these are just like somatic and emotional regulation tools that I teach students and that we'll do in our sessions. And I pre-record a few of them as well, and I put them onto this little student platform that they can access at any time. And can you describe the changes that you started to notice within yourself as you progressed in our one-on-one coaching time together? Because we were with each other for 6 months.
I know. I know. And it's crazy because I feel like I've known you for my whole life. I think it was the like maybe the fifth, or the like when we started doing the shadow work, where I was like taking myself back, and I'm like, wow, we really have been working for 6 months. And again, we've talked about it. Um, we rarely even worked about school or how to study or how to, it was all mindset work. It was all, you know, you brought it out in me. And even I think you knew that it was already in me. Like um I don't know. And it just changed me. And it was like, oh my gosh, I know how to study. I know I can do this. Like I just have to, like planning that, especially that planning 1 week before the test or whatever. It was golden. I was like, oh my gosh, why was I struggling? Why did I withdraw? And a lot of classes, like I could have done this, but I accept her. We love her. This is who we are.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is so important that we touch on because a lot of women who come to work with me, they find me because of my work that I've done primarily with women in college, helping them to pass their classes and all of that. And, I've worked with at this point over like 600 and something students, like women in college. And everyone thinks that what they need is a study plan and what they need is like this like perfect weekly schedule. And what I have found, or they think that they don't know how to study, that they don't know what they're doing. And 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with their study habits, the way that they're planning their time, any of that. It's all about how they're seeing themselves as a student.
Yeah.
And when you're not seeing yourself as someone who can pass, as someone who can handle it, as someone who can do it, what that does is it really affects your ability to show up because you're always anticipating failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
What specific achievements or milestones did you reach that you attribute to our work together? And I want you to get very specific and like list everything out. Like I did this, I did this.
I know. I was there's a lot of, like, I'm trying to think of like specific things, but the one thing that I really want to like specify on is speaking in front of people. And my gosh, my palm sweats when I speak in front of people. And the tapping technique before I go into that class, which is a debate class that I won, and I never knew that I could do it. And I never knew in a million years that I would be speaking in front of people and that I was even gonna debate anyone. Um,
I know it was so crazy to watch. Well, first of all, when we started working together, that was the class that you were the most afraid of.
yeah.
And then every week you were coming, when you were like in that debate season, you were coming like, oh, and I won this part. And then the next thing you were like, oh, wait, and then I won the next part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did the tapping help you with that? Can you talk a little bit?
So because every time I go to school, it was the first class that I go to. and I sit in the car and I talk to myself and I'm like, okay, this is gonna happen. And so I'm like, okay, I feel really anxious. I literally talk myself through it. And and then I just do the tapping and I'm like, I'm so scared. I'm so and then I'm like, but I'm gonna be okay. And it worked. And I'm like, and then I go in confident. And even when I go into the class, I still feel scared and anxious, and I still do the tapping like secretly. I'm like, okay, I'm okay. So yeah, that it really helped me. That one helped me a lot. Um, and
Not only did you get over your fear of speaking in front of people, you actually won the debate
the
of the
debate.
entire class.
Yeah, I actually signed up for a summer class, which I just finished this week with an A. Both A's. So I'm like, I was dreading it because, it's shorter weeks, it's shorter semester. And then one of my classes was a mini semester. So that was only like, I don't even know how many weeks, but it flew.
And you
Um,
were in the Philippines when like the class started. So I
yeah.
think you missed,
And
like
I
the
was in
birth.
the so so good thing my professor was nice about it. It's like, okay, it's like you can yeah, so I caught up on that, and then I'm enrolled in the university that I wanted to go to especially get into dental school. And I'm all signed up for the fall class. Um, and I went to the orientation, and I usually feel so insecure about my age because, like going in, I'm like, oh my gosh, freshly graduated high school. Um, but I was actually very accepting of myself. And I'm like, no, I belong. Like, I belong here. This is my moment. Nobody's taking this moment from me.
No, this is your moment.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so we won the debate. We got over our fear of publicly speaking. We finished two like short-term classes with A's. How did your fall semester go?
it was it was scary, but at the same time, not so much because I was working with you every week. And so I kind of had you, hold me accountable in a way. But it was really showing what I have done and how I think it like made me better as a student. Like that was my like base, like this my like scratch off, like forget the past student, like this is your brand new person. It was but it was good because I had you as a somebody to hold me accountable. And now I know how to do it on my upcoming fall class semester.
Yeah, we did a lot of work around Johanna's self-concept as a student and believing that she was a good student. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on is that this is the first semester that you didn't withdraw from any classes.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
passed every single one of your classes, and it wasn't an easy road. So there were the first few weeks of the semester, and this is like I just want people to see like what is possible when you have someone who's like holding you accountable, who's like helping you to work through your failures, because the first couple of exams that you took for one of your classes were not passing grades. You remember that?
Yeah.
And what did we do to overcome that? Can you remember?
I think that was the time that I finally incorporated the one like study 1 week before. I don't know, I just remember you kind of like in a way you keep like lifting my chin up, like, okay, no, we're not gonna think about that, like, like we're gonna move on.
Yeah, you're not wrong with what it is exactly. So the specifics of it, because obviously when you're in it, it's like hard to remember. But like
Yeah,
on the
that
outside,
wasn't a that wasn't a roller coaster ride.
yeah. But you are spot on, right? Whenever you had to fail an exam, what your brain wanted to do was make it mean that like, oh, I'm never gonna pass. Like I can't do this.
Yeah,
Maybe this class is too hard. Like we would
yeah,
have those
yeah,
conversations. And what I would focus you back on is this has nothing to do with your ability. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're capable of passing. It has to do with the fact that what we did leading up to the exam didn't get us what we wanted. So I
yeah.
kept refocusing you on. And remember, I would make you make those lists of like, list out everything that you did for the exam, what
Mhm.
worked, what didn't, and what would you do differently. And what we landed on is that you weren't giving yourself enough time to actually study
Yeah.
for the exams, right?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And because of that, we incorporated the strategy of having you have that weekly
Yes.
plan right
Yeah.
before the exam, so that by the time
Yeah.
the exam came around, you actually studied everything that you needed to study. Because remember, you kept coming, you're like, oh, I didn't get to study chapter 7 and 8, and that was on the exam. And I was like, well, that makes sense. If you have an exam that there are 5 chapters on and you only covered 3 of the chapters,
Yeah.
it makes sense that you missed, like, you know, the rest of the information because you never got to it. You never studied
Yeah.
it. So this
Yeah.
isn't about whether or not you're smart enough. It's about you literally missed 2 chapters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
it was really about like telling your brain the truth of what happened and not the story that it wanted to tell you. Right. So it came back to like that mindset, and like also bring, you know, whenever you were freaking out about it, we would use like the visualization tools. We would use the tapping tools to get you to calm down. And then what would happen after you calm down? You'd be like, oh, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I see
Yeah.
that. What changes did you see in your relationships, like with yourself, with others, as you were going through this process with me?
I had the worst, like I'm such a big pushover and no boundaries whatsoever. Boundaries, what is that? Ever since I worked with you, I've always I've been choosing myself. I've been like protecting what I have been working on so that I can get to where I need to be. And so boundaries has been the one that I have really cherished the most working with you, because I never had that. And never, I would always please everyone. I would please everyone. And now I'm actually picking and choosing of what I can and what I can't work, or go to or whatnot. I think it just changed me as a whole, like as a person. Like I now have, I make myself as a priority. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. No,
Yeah.
and you had like a few instances during our 6 months, like remember when your aunt and uncle came to visit, and
Yeah.
like put them over your studies, and we learned from that
Yeah.
experience, right? We
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
so
That was
much.
the same as, oh my gosh, that was in the same semester.
Yes.
Crazy semester.
Yep. And I always tell students that remember I kept telling you, the moment that you decide that you want something, the universe, God, whatever you believe in, is going to put situations in your life where you have to then step up to the plate, right? You
Yeah.
wanted these boundaries, you wanted to stop people pleasing, and then all of a sudden your aunt and uncle are coming to visit, and like you're having to like manage that with studying and learn from that experience.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was towards the end of the semester, one of your friends had like, I don't know if it was like a baby shower or a bride, I don't
Yeah.
know, something like that. And you made the
Yeah.
decision to not go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had to do the mindset work around that and like what that meant about you as a friend. But it turned out fine. You reached out, you let her know, and
It
it
was
was
all good.
yeah.
Right.
What specific tool or practice from working with me like resonated with you the most, or do you think had like the biggest, helped you have the biggest transformation?
I want to say like the very last one. I think it's the shadow work. Besides the tapping technique is like my best friend. Um, but like the shadow work is, it really like transformed. And I cried, like I cried even after we talked, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I had been so harsh on myself. I have been so mean to myself. And I'm like, we love her. Who, I'm new. I'm new now. So this is the person that my shadow had been wanting me to be.
Yeah. Had you heard about shadow work prior to us doing the practice together?
No, not at all. Yeah.
Can you describe what it is from like your own perspective? Like
Oh,
there's no right or wrong, like from your description, like what you think shadow work is. So for anyone listening.
oh my gosh. I think for me it was, I guess it's kind of like in the title, the shadow, like your shadow that has been hiding inside of you, like all the shame, the embarrassment that we tend to shy from and hide from. Um and that usually, like, like the triggers that could, you know, that trigger you because of the past flaws and failures and whatnot. But in reality, that's the person that is making you who you are right now. And it was, I don't even know how to explain it, but it was life changing. It was life changing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you described it beautifully. It is. It's us taking all the parts of ourselves that we think make us less than, that we think make us
Yeah.
unworthy, unlovable, unchoosable, and seeing that as our superpower, seeing that as like I needed all of that so that I could be the woman it is that I wanted to be. So, who are you now, Johanna? After 6 months of doing this deep work on yourself, of really like, I call this
Let me
like,
reintroduce myself.
yeah, yes. Who are you now?
I'm still Johanna. I'm still Johanna. But I am a person who is more consistent. I have been more consistent, and um who's more graceful with myself and who sticks to the schedule now. I hope you're proud of me. Um, I am a person of who has boundaries now, and I'm glad that I do.
What do you believe is possible for you now?
Anything. I can do anything now. It really, I feel like there's nothing that I can't set my mind to. Like I can do anything if I like just set my mind into it and actually apply all the things that we have worked in. And like even with the getting the house now, like like purchasing a house, everything that we have worked with, I implied it towards this, like where I'm going now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just no words. I feel like ever since we've worked together, I've been just like new person. Like, and
Yeah.
I can't even explain it to people around me. And I'm just like, you told me just let them experience you. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. just just enjoy it. Yeah.
I love it. What would you say to anyone who is considering working with me, but maybe has like hesitations?
Just do it. I feel like that there was also a hesitation within me because I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this really gonna work? Is this gonna, but I gained more than everything was worth it. Like it's just worth it. There's nothing, nobody can take this now. Like, it's worth it. And I would just do it because that's literally what I did. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna sign up. I'm gonna have this appointment and let's see what this girl is all about. And I turned out to love you. And here we are, changing my life.
Yes. Yes. And what I love about this is that you gave yourself the biggest gift because, and you said it, right? There's nothing now that you don't believe that you can't do because you just watched yourself set your mind to something and actually accomplish it. You know the process now for the rest of your life. And any moment that you begin to doubt, you have these 6 months to go back to and be like, no,
Yeah.
remember when and
Hmm.
what we did?
Yeah,
That's what we're capable of. That's who we actually are. And that's
exactly.
what all of us want at the end of the day is that like being able to see ourselves, like really live into our potential. Amazing. Johanna, I love you and how incredible these 6 months have been. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your journey.
Of course, anything for you. I'm obsessed with you, and I'm just so glad we met and we've worked and, literally changing my life. Like I don't even remember 6 months. Like you'd say 6 months and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was her. Yeah. I don't know her anymore, but we love her. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.